meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners. Before we start, please silence your cell phones. There is equipment for the hearing impaired up here if it is needed. And if you are going to address the board, we have two podiums for that. Please speak directly into the microphones if you do that. It is hard to hear if you don't use the microphone. You're welcome to pick it up and speak directly into it if you want to. We have two committee meetings tonight, the Police Committee and Legal Affairs Committee, prior to tonight's board meeting. And so we will start with the, sorry, let me check with our Township Secretary Jody. We're starting with the committee meetings?
Yes.
Okay. So we will start with the Police Committee. I recognize its Chair, Commissioner McComb.
Thank you, President Sinai. We have one item on the Police Committee agenda tonight. It's a possible police promotion, and we'll hear from Superintendent Graff on that. Superintendent.
Thank you. We have a vacant patrol sergeant position. I'm recommending promotion of Officer Robert McGuire to the rank of sergeant. Give you a brief summary of Officer McGuire's career. He joined the department in May of 2013. He's been assigned to the Operations Division as a patrol officer. Became a member of the ERT team in 2018. He is a platoon investigator, field training officer, and is trained in bicycle patrol. Officer McGuire has established himself as a productive, self-motivated, hard-working officer. So much so that he was selected as Department Officer of the Year twice, once in 2014 and then again in 2016. What's significant about that is submissions are made across the police department, and a group of his peers make that selection. He's received 1 commendation and 11 letters of appreciation from citizens. So that is the recommendation for promotion to sergeant.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. He certainly seems well qualified. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comment on this issue? Jody, is anybody online?
No one has their hand raised online.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I will move that we consider for recommendation of the Board of Commissioners authorizing the promotion of 1 sergeant from the list of candidates certified by the Civil Service Commission as recommended by the Superintendent of Police. Do I have a second? I'll call a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner McComb. Our next committee meeting is the Legal Affairs Committee. I recognize its Chair, Commissioner Bernheim.
Thank you very much, President Sinai. Tonight we have one item on our agenda in the Legal Affairs Committee, and that's to approve a settlement agreement for 1851 Montgomery Avenue for a right-of-way acquisition. So I'll make the motion, and which is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve to execute a settlement agreement to acquire right-of-way at 1851 Montgomery Avenue for a sidewalk installation. And what this is, in short version, is that we've been able to reach an agreement, and I thank the residents, Joseph and Gladys Nigro, for their cooperation, whereby we will be able to go ahead and move forward with the construction and the installation of sidewalks for the safety of people walking towards the new the Black Rock Middle School. And in this agreement, there will be a payment for damages to the property and expenses, which will total $10,100. And part of the agreement is that there's certain trees that have to be removed, others which we're going to take a look at. And if we don't have to remove them, that we will not do so, and then there will be some replanting as necessary. So the motion has been made to go ahead and approve the execution of this agreement, so we need not continue forth with the court, where we had to start the declaration of a taking. So I've made the motion. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Commissioner O'Neill. Any questions or discussions, members of the board? Yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioner
Vice
Bernheim.
President Gavin.
As I've said multiple times, this sidewalk is essential with the addition of the new school. This side of the sidewalk will connect a community with over 100 houses to allow students to safely walk to this new middle school. While they could busing children a quarter mile to a school seems very silly. Now there's an opportunity for them to walk. I just want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Nigro I know this is a huge change. They've been longtime residents of the township, and having a giant new middle school being placed almost directly right in front of their house, and now a sidewalk that will be going in front of their property as well is also a big change. So I want to thank them for their cooperation in working with the township on this. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Vice President Gladwyne, for I know a lot of work that you have put in this and other areas for sidewalks. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Seeing none, then I will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand signaling aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, this carries unanimously, and that completes the business for the Legal Affairs Committee this evening. President Simon.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bernheim. So with that, will the September 21st, 22 meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion please come to order, and we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Bernheim.
Present.
Mr. Churchill.
Here.
Mr. Courtney.
Present.
Mr. Gavin.
Present.
Mr. Grimes.
Here.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Here.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Here.
Mr. McComb.
Here.
Mr. McKeon.
Here.
Ms. O'Neill.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Present.
Mr. Whalen.
Here.
Mr. Zello.
Here.
Mr. Sinai.
Here.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. So every now and then on this board, we get to do things that are a little less boring and a little more fun, and that is to recognize people who have given a lot of service to this township. We have three such people tonight. We have Charlie Davidson, Brian Hoppy, and Dave McComb. I'm going to ask them to join myself, Vice President Gavin, and Commissioner Bernheim for the start in the Oval. Vice President Gavin does not trust me to get this part right, and it's probably well deserved. So what we have are three people here this evening who have done collectively nearly 30 years of service to our advisory boards. It's tremendous service and tremendously important to the township. So rather than going through just in great detail what everyone has done, let me just say thank you to everyone. And also, I'm just going to tell you who each person is and what their service has been. So we will start with Charlie Davidson. And he was on the Zoning Hearing Board from December 2010 until September 2021. Thank you very much for your service. And we have Commissioner Bernheim to... Okay.
I'll steal this from you if I may. So while I could go on for each of these three gentlemen who I've had the privilege of working with for a very, very long period of time and talk about their service and how they have truly made our township better, I will try to do this in short version. And I asked one in reference to Charlie Davidson, because the truth is, while I had the privilege of serving as president of the board, I had what I considered my own breakfast club with the two other members who are here, former President Bruce Reed and Ken Breyer, who also serves on the zoning hearing board, and utilized them with Charlie to bounce off ideas and get information and concepts from them of what to do for the township. And it was just invaluable to steal even more time for you. So Charlie, I asked if I could leapfrog and everything and have the privilege of handing this to you and make sure that next time we have breakfast, we give Bruce the check.
If I may, when I go to a chapter, will we pay? And just to echo that, thank you, President Sinai. Thank you, members of the Board of Commissioners, for your support. Past President Bernheim, I echo what you said. And folks, we live in an extraordinary township, and I just want to echo what you said, Mr. Bernheim, which is I really benefited by the leadership of my colleague Ken Breyer on the Zoning Hearing Board, past President Bruce Reed, you mentioned, and my wife Susan Davidson standing in the back, who really made it possible for me to have the nights to serve here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so Brian and Dave, we have not had breakfast together, so it's going to be a little shorter from me. But Brian has spent a tremendous amount of time on our Environmental Advisory Council from May 2011 through May 2020, serves as chair. It is a council that does a tremendous job in helping make us a more environmentally friendly, progressive township. And thank you very much for your service. You get Vice President Gladwyne, but that's still a good thing. So thank you.
I know Brian pretty well. Met him as his son taught my daughter how to ice skate. She was only crying for the first day, so thank you, Parker, for doing that. But I had the pleasure of serving as the chair of our environmental initiatives committee while you were the chair of the EAC, and just honestly, your service was invaluable to this township. You really led that group, came up with wonderful initiatives, really helped us advance as a township through what is crucial, sustainable initiatives through the years. And we were so sorry to lose you. We know it was for a good reason, as you had a great personal opportunity and didn't have time to do that anymore. But your years of service were truly invaluable to the township. So thank you, Brian.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Gladwyne and President Sinai and former President Bernheim. And actually, I can turn around and look at all these commissioners and Mr. McNeely. It was such a great partnership with the Board of Commissioners, with the township staff. It made it very easy for us to do. Oh, and Chris Lesswing's here with Chris as well. It just made it very easy for us to work on behalf of the township to improve the environment, and I appreciate it every day I had the opportunity to serve. So thank you.
Thank you. And our last honoree this evening is Dave McComb, who is now Commissioner McComb, but prior to being commissioner, he's on the Shade Tree Commission from August 2011 until May 2020. Well, I'm going to give it back to Vice President Gladwyne. I think we all know good.
I don't know if I have anything good to say about this.
Sure
I didn't know you when you were on the Shade Tree Commission, but I've gotten to know you very well since you've been on the board. And if there's a good reason to give up a position on one of the volunteer boards, becoming a commissioner is the best of all reasons. We are so lucky to have all of your service, both before and after you serve as commissioner. So thanks.
Thank you.
Just want to say thank you, and it was really a pleasure to serve on the Shade Tree Commission. It's a great group and an important service to the community. I see some of the Shade Tree commissioners here, and thank you for all you do.
And once again, thanks to these three gentlemen. It is really the unsung service to the township. They don't get to be here with all of you and on TV. They're generally just doing all the hard work behind the scenes, and we are truly grateful. That is well beyond what anyone could have asked of any of you in terms of service to the township. Thank you very much. Oh, we need a photo. We need a photo. Okay. So Charlie, right here in the middle? Okay. Thanks. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Now turn to the approval of the minutes. I will move for the approval of the minutes of a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on July 6, 2022, and the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held on July 20th, 2022, as distributed. Vice President Gladwyne seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passage unanimously. Some announcements. The board met in executive session on September 14th and earlier this evening to receive reports from its professional staff regarding personnel matters, legal matters, Lower Merion School District, and coronavirus. A cleanup weekend is being held on Saturday, October 1st and Sunday, October 2nd, 2022, from 9 until 4 each day at the Township's Public Works Complex. Residents may dispose of their refuse and recycling free of charge. You do need to show proof of residency, and you must recycle, separate your recycling from refuse, and no hazardous waste will be accepted. This is your chance to bring all the things that you've been trying to get rid of and bring them and dispose of them free of charge. You can bring them on other days. You will have to pay something like 12 cents a pound. It is not an onerous amount, but this is the day you get to do it for free. We have a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week. And proclamation is Fire Prevention Week. Fire won't wait. Plan your escape. Whereas the Township of Lower Merion is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke before we do, and alert us to danger in the event of a fire in which we may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And whereas planning and practicing a home fire escape plan ensures that we are more prepared and therefore more likely to survive a fire in our home. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape, effectively serves to remind us to have and practice a home fire escape plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Lower Merion does hereby proclaim October 9th through 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week, and urges all residents to have a home fire escape plan and to support the efforts of the Township's fire and emergency services during Fire Prevention Week 2022. We now turn to public privilege of the floor. This is the section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any non-agenda items or any other public matters in which the township has jurisdiction or authority. We're going to ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes and less unless you're speaking on behalf of a group, in which case please keep them to 5 minutes or less. That's our standard policy. And so with that, anyone wishing to address the board, we're going to ask that you use this podium over here. And please feel free to come up, introduce yourself, and love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Merion Gross. I'm president of the Neighborhood Club of Ballackinwood, and I'm here representing them tonight. Just before I make our statement, I have to correct President Sinai a slight bit. We're not entirely behind the scenes on the Shade Tree Commission. All these chairs are available for all of our residents to come by the second Tuesday night of every month. So some exciting action-packed evenings. My statement on behalf of the Neighborhood Club. The Neighborhood Club of Ballackinwood, in support of myriad local residents opposed to the existence of an establishment which facilitates the sales of and on-location transfer of firearms, as well as provides training services for the use of such firearms, strongly encourages our township commissioners to expeditiously develop ordinance approaches to prevent the sale and/or transfer of firearms and the training in the use of such weapons in line with prevalent community values and interests, and to the greatest extent allowed under local, state, and federal law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gross. Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners, brothers and sisters, members of the public in attendance. My name is Joe Braun. I am the President of the Fraternal Order of Police and represent the active and retired members of this police department. A few years ago, the township conducted a survey after constant complaints of Michael McGrath and his command staff by the FOP and exit interviews of retiring police officers. The purpose was to confirm these complaints within the police department. The results of this survey were catastrophic towards Mike McGrath and the inner workings of the police department. Focus groups were also conducted to gather further information as to these results. During the focus groups, the woman running them stated she had been working for the survey company for a long, long time, and these were the worst results she has ever seen. To this date, the men and women of this police department have yet to see or feel any changes from this survey by Mike McGrath or the commissioners of this township. As a matter of fact, the feeling is overwhelming that they have gotten remarkably worse. The men and women of this police department deserve better. The unfair discipline, the lawsuits against Mike McGrath for hostile work environments and sexual harassment in today's society are not acceptable and cannot stand. The men and women of your police department are outraged and embarrassed. Earlier this year, now State FOP President Joe Reagan and I met with President Sinai and Vice President Gavin to discuss these complaints. During our 2-hour conversation, I specifically laid out how Mike McGrath will circle the wagons for members of his command staff when it comes to matters of discipline, but has no mercy when it comes to the patrol division. I gave one specific example involving a captain during a sexual harassment investigation. The way that interview and resulting discipline were handled was appalling, but surprised no one. I stressed that this kind of action and corruption needs to be stopped immediately. Fast forward merely a couple of months after that meeting, and there was a lieutenant who deliberately gave a new hire candidate the answers to our oral interview. It was extremely obvious to those on the board conducting that interview that this candidate cheated and knew the answers to the questions. When confronted by the other board administrators, the lieutenant admitted to giving the candidate the answers. This was a blatant cheating and lying, not overcoaching, as Mike McGrath would lead you to believe. Cheating and lying in the past would have resulted in immediate termination for any bargaining unit member. The word integrity is written on every one of our patrol cars. Without it, we can all agree that no one should be allowed to wear a badge or carry a gun. The result of that investigation was a measly 3-day suspension for that lieutenant. Why? Because the lieutenant is a member of the Mike McGrath command staff. The biggest calculated lie by Mike McGrath was coming to this board and the public and announcing that an officer was being suspended. He is a lieutenant and a member of this command staff. In our hallways and in his unit, he is addressed as lieutenant, not officer. He purposely put those actions on the shoulders of patrol, again, to cover up the actions of his command staff. The officers of Lower Merion Police Department were out of their minds about this. Now, our officers have to answer the other departments' questions of what's going on with our department, or while at training hearing, oh, I've heard about your department. Mike McGrath has single-handedly destroyed the integrity and reputation of the Lower Merion Police Department. Your officers deserve better. Yesterday morning, the brothers and sisters of Lower Merion Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 28 unanimously, 73-0, decided to vote no confidence for Mike McGrath. This was a secret ballot, so no one felt pressured to disagree. I have refused to call Mike McGrath superintendent tonight because he's not worthy of that title. To the citizens of this great township, your officers need your help. These commissioners have refused to listen to your officers for years. They have seen the results of that catastrophic survey and listened to our complaints and done nothing. We need your help. Reach out to them, demand answers, and please help us save our drowning township. Please, thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Sir, please go ahead.
Good evening to the board members. My name is Joe Regan. I'm a retired police officer from Lower Merion. I served for 28 years, proud to serve. Retired in 2011. Also was proud to be the 4-term president of the Fraternal Order of Police in Lower Merion. But tonight I come in a different role as president of the State Fraternal Order of Police. We represent 40,000 members, active and retired law enforcement officers across Pennsylvania. This type of action is taken very seriously. Many times it's viewed as maybe something of a last resort. But I would ask you tonight to listen closely to all interested parties here and do what's best, if you would, for this organization of these police officers. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishes to address the board?
Maura Gillen, Haverford. I had the real privilege this morning of hearing from the Montgomery County Prothonotory, Noah Marlier, who really was advocating for civic engagement. And one of the things he said is that you need to show up at your Board of Commissioners meetings. I try. I don't view this as the public privilege of the floor. I've said this before. I view it as our public responsibility. Government, properly run, at the local level especially, is the responsibility of our paid staff, the elected officials, and the public, who is responsible for showing up and asking questions. Some of us are regular, some of us periodically. Appearing before you is not easy. Some of us try to write out our notes ahead of time, and if you don't see our eyes, it's because we're trying to stay on script. We don't do it out of pride, we do it out of courage. Sometimes without even the courtesy of an acknowledgement. But we do it anyway. It's our responsibility to do things like requesting affordable units when the Planning Commission forgets to even bring up the topic. It's our responsibility to question practices and processes that don't seem to jive with a layman's read of our code. I want to ask you tonight to look at a couple of your processes. The first, when public comments are sent by email in advance of a meeting, I would ask that those be read live at the meeting, at least the first 3 minutes of those comments, rather than just saying that Mr. Smith sent comments. We, the public, should get to hear what our fellow citizens are saying, and those public comments should be live on Channel 7 as well. I also want you to please review your processes relative to moving an item from a committee to the Board of Commissioners. I was really surprised when I saw that application for a new roof at 111 South Gulf. It got a thorough review at the Building and Planning Committee, and to his credit, Commissioner Grimes actually treated the applicant like an applicant, gave them and other applicants that evening the opportunity to present their case and actually answer questions. They weren't relegated to just 3 minutes public comment. I credit you with that, sir. I think that's really the way to treat applicants, even though we're just individual applicants coming to you for a harbor and HC recommendation. There was a thorough discussion. The only thing that applicant asked for that evening was a little lenience on the delay because he had an active leaking roof. And he was jeopardizing his building by not getting that roof replaced. Thorough discussion. You allowed Christian Bush to speak up, which is not normal, but that's great. It was a thorough discussion. 1 week later, somehow that agenda item got presented in a very strange way as cedar versus asphalt. Well, what's the difference in economics, one versus the other? That was never the applicant's contention. And 2 people changed their votes, and then all of a sudden this applicant has a delay that he never saw coming. Nobody told him they were going to change their votes. It left us wondering who had approached any of the commissioners in between the Building and Planning Committee and the Board of Commissioners. Please go back and watch. I have one other that I'd like to bring to your attention. I'll save that for another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Or public privilege?
Good evening. My name is David Kremer from Ardmore. I'm just here to ask 2 questions to you guys. I don't want to take much of your time. I've been coordinating and conversing with the Building and Planning Department in order to get answers to these questions, but they were unable to provide those, so I'm just going to pose them to you. Where the One Ardmore Place building is constructed is right over the cricket lot, the former cricket lot, which had 2,000 square feet of planting beds scattered around it. When the One Ardmore building was approved for permit, it maintained that exact same amount of impervious coverage. However, when the building was done with construction, they requested a change order, and they changed all of the planting beds with gravel. They covered it over, which according to township documents is impervious. So soon after that happened, the building started leaking copious amounts of water onto the adjoining properties. I'm not saying it's as a result of that, but it's just a correlation. And that leaking of water led the township to install a stormwater diversion. They built a curb along the sidewalk to divert all of the excess stormwater on the site out to Cricket Avenue. And that got me involved because it was right behind my house. So my question to you is that when I asked the Building and Planning Department about this, they said that let me see what the word was. They said that a insignificant amount of soil was covered, yet according to the Stormwater Management Code, anything over 1,500 square feet has to comply with the Stormwater Management Code, meaning that there has to be a certain amount of stormwater recharged back into the soil, so going back into the groundwater. It has a green roof, but that doesn't recharge. Gravel's impervious, that doesn't recharge. The building is now 100% impervious, and there's 0 recharging. So I'm wondering if that 1,500 square foot number is a little fluid, and if there's interpretation there, or if that's hard and fast. Also, I want to ask, is gravel considered impervious? Because it also came up that when the gravel was added, the underlying absorption of the soil underneath did not substantially change. But if it's impervious, then it fundamentally changed. So I'd just like some clarification on that as a resident and as a professional, because for future projects, I'd like to understand that so I can apply the code to my professional and personal life. Question number 2 is, when the sidewalk was re-poured, a 6-inch step was installed in what once was an accessible public sidewalk. I've been told by a nonprofit legal counsel that per the ADA, all new public sidewalks, when they intersect with a curb, are required to have curb cuts for accessibility. There is no curb cut in this location. So I was wondering if someone could please investigate this in order to determine how this is compliant. I just ask these questions because the township spends a considerable amount of time writing codes and legislations, and I'm looking for assurance that these are being enforced at all properties equally, regardless of size. I honestly would request that someone look into how the Stormwater Management Code and ADA accessibility were prioritized during the approval process of this particular project. I'd be more than willing to sit down with any of you if you have any further questions, and I could provide some additional information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to make public privilege of the floor? Okay, seeing none. Jody, do we have anyone online?
We do have one individual, Steven Seltzer, and I'll promote him now.
Okay.
It's not working. Oh, there we go. Mr. Seltzer, if you would unmute your mic and turn your camera on.
There we go. And it's not Stephen, it's actually Adrian. I must have hit the wrong button when I put in the name. Hi. I have a couple comments and experience. For the first time in many, many years, to have a project happening in my house that I went and got a permit for. And I find that everybody is kind of graded on the same scale. I'm graded, my impervious surface is graded the same as somebody who has all lawn versus my property that has many trees and bushes and other plantings. My whole front lawn is a woodland garden. But going with the rules, I said that was fine. But somehow they figured if I'm taking out the flagstone pathway that I have, I needed to put up tree and silt protection that to protect it against machinery when I was the one lifting up the flagstone myself. This cost me hundreds of dollars. I don't think it's fair. I was charged more than 50% of the cost of the project as escrow for this. Again, something that is totally unfair. While my neighbor, who was having a ton more work done, was charged less in escrow. So I think that one size fits all is not the way the township should go. It does not make any sense. And it's not fair to our residents. Also, while I was listening, it wasn't the budget workshop, it was the other thing. Towards the end of the meeting, I heard Commissioner Bernheim talk about traffic giving it the same or more importance as the mental health of our residents. And while I was screaming at the TV at home, I couldn't be there at the meeting to actually speak out against that. Traffic is traffic. That's fine. But the mental health of our residents should have a higher priority. Also, with the ARP funds, I'm trying to figure out how that money will be spent by 2020, 6 for the Ardmore Community Center and the Palm when there aren't even plans and it's towards the end of 2022? How do you plan to get that project done by 2026? When I know stuff moves kind of at a snail's pace for the township. Also, I agree 100% with what Mo has said. I have said similar things in the past. So I will end now. And I would appreciate you at least thanking us for coming out and doing a civic duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seltzer. Anyone else online, Judy?
No.
Okay. So we have two public comments. And in the spirit of earlier public comment, I'm going to read from them as they came in. So one comes from, sorry, I have to zoom this a little larger. So one comes from Melissa Schwartz, who writes, and she writes in support of installing a stop sign at the corner of Bryn Mawr Avenue and Derwin Road. And she writes, my husband and I reside at 57 Derwin Road. On this corner, we've lived here for 19 years, and the sight lines for the corner have always been a concern. Over the past decade, speeding up the hill from Ballot Avenue has increased, and there have been many accidents and many more near misses. We are one back block from Kinwood Elementary. When I used to walk my daughter to school, we witnessed this firsthand. Drivers are increasingly more aggressive and even have bypassed the crossing guards at the school. Now I see there are 2 at the corner. I would think that alerting drivers to the need to proceed slowly would be a priority for our township to avoid accidents with children and families is a matter of public safety. She then goes on to describe another accident and says, even though we do not have school-age kids any longer, we feel strongly that this is a big problem and hope that the township will decide to make this intersection a 4-way stop. Amber Trimble writes, I'm writing to share public comment regarding a stop sign request at Derwin Road and Bryn Mawr Avenue in Ballackinwood. I've been walking my 2 children from their preschool for over 2 years now, and I have concerns about the safety of that intersection for 2 reasons. Cars are speeding, and when the elementary middle schools are in session, parked cars line both sides of Bryn Mawr Avenue. And then she goes on to say, my family and I strongly support adding stop signs at Bryn Mawr Avenue, at Derwin Road, and pedestrian crosswalks on Levering Mill Road between Ballot Avenue and Derwin Road. And that is it for public privilege. So does any board member wish to respond to any of the comments? I am happy to go first. And that is to Officer Braun and Officer Regan. Thank you both for your comments, and certainly for all the members of the Lower Merion Police Department who are here in attendance. Thank you very much for your service to this township. I'm going to start by prefacing it by saying it is a matter of policy and the right kind of policy for this township and for this board that we do not discuss personnel matters. We don't do it by law, and it's also the right thing to do. It protects the people for whom personnel matters are an issue, and it protects any one of you who might be a subject of a personnel issue, whether it's a positive issue or a negative issue, whether it's a formal discipline or whether it's a discussion. It's just not something that we should or do discuss in public. And this is not a forum for that. Having said that, I and this board very much appreciate hearing from you. I and Vice President Gavin had the opportunity, as Officer Braun said, to spend 2 hours with him and Joe Regan, listening and doing exactly what we said, which is listening to the concerns and the comments that they had. And I will say that we internalize that, and I am sorry that if it does not come across that we internalize that, but we do. But the matters of what we do as a board here are ones that are part of the discussion of this board and are not appropriate to be shared publicly. They're not appropriate to be shared in this forum. And so we will do our work, and we will do it with the information and the belief that we are doing, like everyone here, to act in the best interest of this township. I will say, in regards to what Officer Braun brought up, we as a board, whenever there's a personnel decision, collect the evidence, discuss and debate it among ourselves, and as a board, make a decision on what we think is the best and most appropriate course of action, given all the evidence that we have and the information that we have, and not all of it may be public, and not all of it may be widespread. And that is the right process to do, and I believe that we have followed the right process, and it is one where we, as a group of 14, come to a collective decision that we all believe is serving the best interest of the entire township. So with that, thank you very much for your comments. I look forward to future conversations, and I look forward to a constructive and productive working relationship as we try and have really what the best set of services and the best support in this township is. Thank you very much. Any other response to public comment? Yes, Commissioner Bernhardt.
Yeah, thank you very much. I almost hesitate to follow your appropriate remarks there, and I'm not going to approach that topic, but Ms. Seltzer, on a number of occasions, and you appear before us quite frequently, and get a lot of airtime, and we listen to what you have to say. As you indicated, you picked up on the tail end of something and somehow equated a comment of mine that I connect dots between traffic and mental health. I do not, nor is that what I stated or anything close. I invite you to re-listen to the entire comments that were made, and that was in connection with the ARP funds and pointing out that the consultants that we retained did not take a look into what we should do for infrastructure. And while they may have asked questions of people about mental health, they did not ask about infrastructure. And there was no saying that one is more important to the other, but merely pointing out that that was an item that was not part of their analysis, which needs to be part of ours. So hopefully that clarifies things for you. And in light of other things, it seems a bit trivial this evening, but thank you very much, President Sinai.
And thank you very much, Commissioner Bernheim. Commissioner Zoloff.
Thank you, President Sinai. Also, in response to Ms. Seltzer, the ARP funds have been allocated for the new Ardmore Avenue Community Center, which is in design and has been discussed publicly. Once the design's completed, will be discussed again publicly. And then presumably will go to construction. That's and you point out that funds have to be expended in 4 years by the end of 2026. That doesn't mean the building has to be completed in 4 years. It just means that the amount of money that we've allocated from the ARP money, the federal money, has to be expended. We certainly would like to have the building completed in 4 years, but if it's not, we just have to have those funds expended, and those funds do not, or the amount that's been allocated is not the entire amount for that construction process. We've talked about it before publicly. We'll continue to do so. Thank you, President Sinai.
Thank you, Commissioner Zoloff. Any other commissioners wish to respond to public privilege? Commissioner Stevenson.
Mr. President, thank you. I wanted to respond to the comments from Mr. Kramer. I know that his comments covers more than himself and other residents on Athens, and that I will work with the staff and the township manager to follow up on behalf of the Board of Commissioners to get back to them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Stevenson. Any other commissioners wish to respond to public privilege? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to public comment. This is the section of our meeting where members of the public may address the board on any agenda items. Again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If there's a group of people who wish to comment on the same topic, we ask that a spokesperson be selected, and that spokesperson can have 5 minutes. Does anyone in the room wish to comment on an agenda item? Please come forward.
Thank you very much. My name is Jeffrey Dobkin. I'm a longtime resident of Bala-Cynwyd. First, I'd like to thank all the commissioners. I know you do a lot of work behind the scenes, and it's not often appreciated. I'd also like to thank the police department for the thankless job that they usually do, and it's really appreciated by some of us. I'm here to speak about item 14, where there is a proposed stop sign at Lodges Lane and Bryn Mawr Avenue. I'm against this stop sign. So while it may or may not be a perceived level of safety for kids when they get out of school from 3 to 5, the stop sign at this intersection will be a burden to all who travel the main thoroughfare night and day, day in, day out, 24 hours a day. I know it's said to be safer for the children, and having raised 3 kids through the Lower Merion School District, myself, I would never do anything that I thought was not safe for the children. There are many children over Ballackinwood, but that doesn't necessitate putting a stop sign on through roads such as Bryn Mawr Avenue. There's very clear visibility up and down Bryn Mawr Avenue at this intersection, probably 500 yards one way, 300 yards the other way, good visibility, and still is a safe intersection. In my call to the police department, I was not able to ascertain there's ever one incident at this intersection. Not one child has ever been injured, not one automotive crash at this intersection. So will a stop sign increase safety there? And the answer is it can't, because there's never been something that happened that wasn't safe. But the stop sign will impede traffic flow quite a bit, to the inconvenience of all the neighbors. Every school bus is going to have to stop on the way there and on the way back from school. Every commuter, every UPS truck, every Amazon truck, and every area resident, such as myself, would be inconvenienced of the hundreds of neighbors using this local road. And I did a survey, and I spoke to a lot of the neighbors, and out of the 25 people or so that I canvassed, not one knew that there was going to be a stop sign put there. So, and the rest signed this sheet. When I started to ask them to sign a sheet, everyone agreed the stop sign should not be placed there. One said it should, and one said he had no comment and would not sign on the sheet. I understand speeders use this road. That is an enforcement issue. It is not, let's put a stop sign there to stop speeding. And in fact, the Department of Transportation specifically says not to place a stop sign to slow traffic down. I'd ask for another 2 minutes because I do represent these people. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand that there is a blind guy or woman close to here. I got nothing for that. You know, if you're, I just be careful crossing the street, whether there's a stop sign or not. The main roads, Montgomery Avenue, are pretty clogged with traffic now, and so I don't, I can't pull out on Montgomery Avenue between 8 and 9:30 and 4 to 6. I have no problem stopping at a stop sign. I pass this intersection going to all my suburban destinations 5 or 6 times a day. Whole Foods, Pickleball, Giant, Suburban Square, Farmers Market, the mall, every day. So 5 times a day, and I come back the same way. That's 10 times a day I travel through this road. That's 70 times a week, 280 times each month, 3,360 times a year. And that's where I do have a problem with the stop sign being placed here. So it doesn't increase safety. It's just cumbersome, makes people not want to live in the neighborhood, and I'm against it. And thank you all for listening.
And thank you, Mr. Dobkin. If you want to give a copy to the petition to Secretary Kelly,
Sure.
she can take that from you. Anyone else in the room wish to make public comment on agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Jody, is there anyone online for public comment?
There is none.
Okay. So I'm going to read the public comment that came in by email. Karen Averill writes, hi, she writes in favor of installing stop signs at the same intersections. She writes, hi, this street is where the kids from elementary and middle school walk back and forth each day, and folks speed all the time. I just want to add my voice for a stop sign, which would help for safety for children and parents and decrease accidents. Rita Sergonis writes, I fully support there being a stop sign placed on Bryn Mawr Avenue, Lodges Lane intersection. The traffic down Bryn Mawr Avenue from Levering Mill to Bala Avenue is much too fast and is dangerous to children, pets, cyclists, and other drivers. There are cars that park on Bryn Mawr Avenue which narrow the street to one lane at certain points, which you'd think would help slow the flow. But people that use it as a cut-through still manage to fly down the road. And then she goes on to describe a couple near accidents. And Paige Talbot and Jim Gould write, we have lived on the corner of Bryn Mawr and Levering Mill since 1985. Our 4 children were raised in this house. We've always realized that this intersection is a high traffic one when school's in session, but we are alarmed by the increase of speeding on Bryn Mawr Avenue between Bala Avenue and Levering Mill, even during school hours. There are frequent accidents here, hence the assignments of 2 crossing guards to protect the students and families. Please consider at least installing at least 1 stop sign at Lodge and/or Penarth to slow down this dangerous situation. Do any commissioners wish to respond to public comment? Commissioner Gilda Kramer.
I would like to respond to Mr. Dobkin's comments. First of all, this proposed ordinance has been advertised and publicized, so there's been notice to the community. I also spoke both at the Neighborhood Club Bala Cynwyd's meeting about the proposed stop sign, and I included information about the proposed stop sign in a newsletter that I sent to over 1,000 residents. As a result of that, I had an outpouring of support for the stop sign at Bryn Mawr and Lodges. People calling me, people emailing me, people stopping me on the street and telling me how much they appreciated the fact that we were going to have it. People telling me that they had been approached by Mr. Dobkin with his petition and that they refused to sign his petition because they supported the stop signs. And so I just wanted to say that I think this is really important to my community, important to my neighborhood, and I hope that all of the commissioners will support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. Any other commissioners wish to respond to public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. It's on page 4 of your packet. And does any commissioner wish to remove anything from consent?
Yes,
Mr.
President
Bernheim.
Sinai, I'd like to remove that which is identified as letter F, the preliminary land development plan for 111 Presidential Boulevard.
Okay, we will tackle that later. Let me just pull this up. So I will move for the approval of the consent calendar, including all the items from the meetings of the Legal Affairs Committee and Police Committee held earlier in the evening, and all the items in the consent calendar on your agenda except for letter F. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
For the adoption of the consent calendar, Mr. Bernheim.
It's absent F, correct.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Gavin.
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zello.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The consent calendar is duly adopted.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And this is all part of Commissioner Bernheim's grand plan to get me off my rhythm this evening. But I have found agenda item F on page 9 of your packet. I will just start the ball rolling by just putting it out there as a motion. So I will move that we approve a preliminary land development plan dated May 25th, 2022, last revised August 26th, 2022, showing the demolition of the existing improvements on the property and construction of a 5-story mixed-use building. The proposed building contains 425 residential dwelling units, 25,564 square feet of ground floor commercial space, and 676 structured parking spaces. The plan includes public gathering space and streetscape improvements. Do I have a second? Commissioner McComb. Any commissioner wish to make a comment on this, Commissioner Bernheim?
Funny you should ask. The reason I asked to remove this from consent, and I recognize that no matter how articulate I might try to be, or persuasive that I know where the vote is going. And I do this not as a protest vote, but in good conscience, I still remain having great difficulty of approving this. I've discussed this on a couple of occasions, that I think in large part driven by the size of this development, the parking and traffic issues that are going to be developed are significant enough that it would compromise the safety in the area. Last week we talked about then having some street parking, which albeit would be on where the property currently exists, as an effort to try to enhance walkability in the area. And since that time, I have been able to do some other, investigation as to recommendations, both through studies of what one does or doesn't do. And again, as I've indicated several times, I drive that area almost every single day, and have a great concern that that is going to be a greater problem than it is going to be a resolution. As a result of that, I find that it would be appropriate not to approve this plan until it was modified in order to address those issues. Again, recognizing it's unlikely that I will persuade this board to do so, I will just take the quick moment now to tell everybody, when this comes back to us for a final plan, hopefully we will then scrutinize with care all of the parking and traffic issues that will be presented at that time. But presently, under its current configuration, I cannot support this.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Anyone else wish to comment? I will comment briefly because I do share a number of Commissioner Bernheim's concerns. This is a big project, and we are getting a lot of additional apartments in Ballackinwood. And, in part, the impacts of it are going to be predicated on, the success or lack of success of whatever transportation demand management we're able to do. And, it's a heavy lift, right? There's a lot of stuff coming in, and it's a heavy lift. And I respect Commissioner Bernheim's concerns about safety here. At the end of the day, I'm going to support this. In large part because I do think this project complies with zoning. I have a general view that if a project is going to be effectively by right, then what we should do is we should approve it. And if we want to impose strict standards on what gets developed, or constraints on the size, or whatever measures of things that we want projects to accomplish, we should write them into the code and be very clear and transparent about what it is that our objectives are, and require that applicants adhere to it. And so it's very visible. I think this complies with the zoning code. I think that was water under the bridge in the 20 teens, and I completely understand why that was the zoning policy that was passed then. And the way to solve it is to say, we are going to just be diligent about zoning changes going forward, that we don't upzone, that we make sure that the kinds of modifications to zoning that got passed are things that this board would consider in due process, and maybe do more if that is what this board wants, right? That strikes me as the way to deal with it. But I'm very sympathetic to those concerns. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor, please raise. Actually, do we roll call? Okay, please raise your hand. I'll eventually learn. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Any abstentions? Okay, so the ayes carry it 11-3. The next item on our agenda, I'm sure I have this, is the adoption of ordinance vehicles and traffic for stop intersections at Saybrook Road. Did I miss anything? Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have a conditional use application, building and planning. Oh, for 1400 Mill Creek, I'm sorry. Okay, so page 33 of your packet. We have a conditional use approval and final land development plan extension for 1400 Mill Creek Road in Gladwyne, Ward 2. I'm just going to enter this in the motion. I'm going to move that we adopt pursuant to the order of the Commonwealth Court dated June 17th, 2022, reversing denials by the Board of Commissioners, a resolution approving the conditional use application submitted by Mill Creek Road Associates LP on June 12, 2019, and approving a one-year extension from the grant of the conditional use for Mill Creek Road Associates LP to file a final land development plan. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Grimes. This board has discussed this project at length over the years. Do we have any further discussion this evening? Okay, Commissioner Grimes.
Yeah, thank you, President Sinai. I just want to make a comment or two for those who may be tuning in, the public, who are going to wonder why the board is doing what we're doing tonight. This is an application that this board rejected in 2019. And we rejected it because we felt the project was not appropriate for the site of this property, the Class 1 resource, Barker Mill, and also its site in Rolling Hill Park. And that rejection was upheld by Common Pleas Court, but it was reversed by Commonwealth Court. And Commonwealth Court directed, and then Common Pleas Court subsequently directed the Board of Commissioners to approve the application, which is what I expect the board is going to do tonight, because we've been ordered by the court to do that. However, this does not change the fact that this plan is not a good plan that we're going to approve. It also doesn't change the fact that the property has been in deplorable condition for years and continues to be in deplorable condition because the owner fails to maintain it the way that they're supposed to maintain a Class 1 resource. It is also frequently the subject of repeated vandalism, which just goes on and on and on. So the board, I expect, is going to do what we're supposed to do tonight, but let me say, and we're going to move on. Let me say that I hope that with this approval that the owner will take advantage of their opportunity to do what's right with this property, which means not just develop it, but also to restore the property to where it can be an asset for Gladwyne and the township, and not a continuing eyesore. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Grimes. Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor? Sorry. No, yeah, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Madam Secretary, that passes unanimously. We now turn to page 65 in your packet, where we have a Public Works Committee item on the Sycamore Avenue paving cost. And here I will again enter this as a motion. We had discussed this in committee a while ago, and it would ordinarily have come up to the Board of Commissioners in a week I would not be here. And because this is in Ward 12, we have deferred it to this point. So I'm going to move that we approve the township incurring the cost of paving Sycamore Avenue between Valley Road and Calvert Road in the amount of $7,770. Do I have a second? Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. So just a little bit of background here, just to refresh people's memory. I'll keep it brief because we have discussed it in the past. And that is, this is a section of road that we agreed to have dedicated to the township. It is a section of road, you can't even call it a block. It is 2 houses long section of road. That is the only section of a miles-long road that was not public, except no one knew it, because the last record we have of it not being public is back in something like 1930 in the minutes, something like that. When the rest of the street was dedicated to the public, the residents on this one little section said, no, we don't want it to happen. In some time over the dusty annals of time, that information got lost. And the road was treated as, this little segment was treated as public. And when we last discussed it, the question came up, like, how would we know that people didn't realize it was private? And the answer is, I worked with these residents, and I understand, I firsthand experience how utterly, convinced they were that this road was public. It's not that they were just surprised that it was private. They were convinced it was public. They had lived there since the early 1980s. All their documents from all their transactions referred to it as a public road. Their mortgages referred to it as a public road. They had no idea it was a private street. They had never done anything to it, and the township had always taken care of it. It's always been treated unposted, treated like a public road. The question last time came up, and I think quite rightly, that what distinguishes this from the many other private streets in this township, because the residents have brought it up to the level where it can be dedicated, with the exception that they are asking for the township to cover the expense of just doing the routine paving of this road that had been used as a public road, with the view that the township in this case would be appropriate for it to be paved by the township in the ordinary course of its paving, because the township had been using this road in the ordinary course of its business, including with its trucks and its plows, et cetera, with a wear and tear that goes along with it, that the two houses that are on the street would not have been the cause, right? It is all the other traffic on the street in this area. So it's going to get paved either way. The residents have asked for the consideration of this board. I'm going to support it, but I think that's the backstory, and hopefully I captured it. Any other commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Zeliff.
Thanks, President Sinai. There are many private roads in the township, and so I have some concern about the precedent this sets. However, in this case, there are many, many unusual circumstances that make it so that this is logical to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Zeliff. Commissioner Gavin, Vice President Gavin, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner, President Sinai. With all due respect to your comments and Commissioner Zeliff's comments, while I supported the dedication of this street, I cannot support the township paying for the cost of bringing it up to code, essentially. You had mentioned in your comments that back in 1930 or whatever it was, the residents said, no, we don't want it on this little portion. Presumably, the residents on the rest of the street, just like residents on any other private street, before they can get it dedicated to the public, pay that cost to bring it up to code like any other public street. We haven't done this in the past where we have paid the cost to bring it up to public street. These private roads, there are a lot in the western end of the township. Some are marked, some are not. Some are kind of dead ends where are not through traffic, some have through traffic. In all cases, they're not closed off. You have cars from non-residents driving through, you have trucks from the township driving through, you have wear and tear that does not come from the residents. And to me, whether the wear and tear has come from the residents or not, it is the responsibility of the residents on a private street. There was a decision made at some point that the residents on that private street, if they want it to become public, just like the residents on the rest of the street, just like the residents on any other private street that wants to go public, they bring it up to code, and then we happily take it over as a public road. So I understand that these residents did not know, were surprised by it. That, again, is not uncommon to me. I understand the arguments for saying that the township should pay for it. I just disagree and think that just like everywhere else, the residents should be paying for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Gavin. Anyone else? Commissioner Courtney.
Thank you, President Sinai. Since Commissioner Gavin chimed in with his opinion, I thought I would give mine. In terms of, I think there is a great deal of public interest in taking over this road. And when you weigh that against the cost of $7,000, that is surely a cost that we can bear in the name of improvement of the township and of general quality of life along this road. Other private roads don't necessarily have that balance of usefulness and low cost to bring up. I can think of one in Ward 5 where this has been an issue, and it's a reason why it hasn't been dedicated, and I would be happy to make that distinction to those residents as I have here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Courtney. Any other commissioners? Okay. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 9. Opposed? 2, 3, 4. Abstentions? Is that 10-4? Okay. So that carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is on page 76, which we are finally on page 76. The adoption of the ordinance of Chapter 145, Vehicles and Traffic, stop intersections at Saybrook Road and Stone Ridge Lane, General Lafayette Road and Putnam Road, Bryn Mawr Avenue and Lodges Lane, and Bryn Mawr Avenue and West Lodges Lane. I will move that we adopt an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 145 thereof, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 15, Schedules, Section 145-108, Schedule 8, stop intersections by rescinding the two-way stop intersections at Saybrook Road and Stone Ridge Lane, General Lafayette Road and Putnam Road, and Bryn Mawr Avenue and Lodges Lane, and by establishing four-way stop intersections at Saybrook Road and Stone Ridge Lane, and General Lafayette Road and Putnam Road, and by establishing three-way stop intersections at Bryn Mawr Avenue and Lodges Lane, and at Bryn Mawr Avenue and West Lodges Lane. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at a stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held August 1st, 2022, and duly advertised in the September 11th, 2022 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. Do I have a second? Yeah, Commissioner Gilder Kramer. Any questions or comments about this item? Seeing none. Madam Secretary, you call for
For the adoption of ordinance 4250, Mr. Burnham.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Aye.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Ms. O'Neill. Aye. Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zello.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. So we now turn to the adoption of ordinance Chapter 107, the official map vacating Old Monk Road. And that is on page 79 of your packet. And so I will move that we adopt an ordinance to amend the official map of streets of the Township of Lower Merion, adopted pursuant to the provisions of the Code of the Township of Lower Merion, Chapter 107, entitled Official Map, to vacate and abandon a certain right-of-way being designated Old Monk Road, from Monk Road to the end of the cul-de-sac, the distance of approximately 395 feet. This ordinance was authorized for advertisement at the stated meeting of the Board of Commissioners held August 1st, 2022, and duly advertised in the September 11th, 2022 edition of the Mainline Times and Suburban. Do I have a second, Commissioner Grimes? Any commissioner questions for staff or comments on this? Okay, seeing none. Madam Secretary?
For the adoption of ordinance 4251, Mr. Burnheim.
Aye.
Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Grimes.
Yes.
Ms. S. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. G. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. McComb.
Yes.
Mr. McKeon.
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill. Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Whalen.
Yes.
Mr. Zello.
Aye.
Mr. Sinai.
Yes.
The ordinance is duly adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? Commissioner Bernheim.
Well, it's unfinished in this respect, in that I have, like a broken record, been trying since February of this year to get the school district to do something that we did back in December of 2021. And that is to have a tax credit for our volunteers who are in the fire service. And what we passed was an ordinance so that those people that met certain criteria within a program would have a 100% municipal tax credit. This helps us recruit and retain volunteer firefighters that are the backbone of our fire service. I've asked the school district on repeated occasions, once a month since February, having sent them our ordinance and the laws that permit them to do something similar, to pass something. They don't have to do it at 100%. They could do it at 50%. We have had 29 different volunteers that have applied for and received the credit. If the school district were to give the same credit to those members of our fire service, it would mean that about $215,000 of revenue would not be received. It's not an out-of-pocket cost to them, but it's extraordinarily meaningful to those members of the fire service. The most recent response and explanation I got for the delay, I believe with all due respect, is absolutely ludicrous. And that was that the school district could not consider this until it settled the lawsuit known as the Woke lawsuit regarding that which most of us, if not all of us, have received letters of a $15 million settlement that they have for this litigation. There is nothing that connects this request to help our firefighters and that lawsuit whatsoever. I've explained to the chairman or the president of their board, as well as the superintendent, that I was no longer going to sit back and allow excuses and delays to come forth without putting some pressure on the school district to make a decision, which I think is an easy decision for them to do, to participate in this property tax credit to help our volunteer firefighters. So I will continue at each and every meeting that we have. I will appear at each and every meeting that they have, and I will make sure that we get enough letters out there until they take some action. This should be an easy decision for the school district, and it has nothing to do with their litigation with any regarding that which they have been required or have consented to refund, but they should be helping our volunteer fire service, and they should not wait one more day to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernheim. Anyone else?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any new business to come before the board? Okay, seeing none. This evening's meeting of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners is hereby adjourned.